There you go. There you go. All right. So here we go. Okay.
Now we know what's
What we have with the Constitution, right? Today we're going to be doing the legislative branch. Couple things to start. First page of your packet does a good job of giving you a visual summary of the Constitution. Okay, so use that. Okay. The Constitution is set up with the process of using a federal system or federalism. Okay. The federal system that we use, okay, what this does is this is where you have state governments and national governments working together, right? It's like we were talking about in class. They are going to be balancing out one another, okay? You're going to have a separation of powers, which we're going to talk about. That's to make sure that one branch of government does not gain too much power, okay? That is checks and balances that we deal with, okay? That is the basic setup that we have to work the Constitution, all right? So the federal system or federalism is what does this. It is important to note, we'll talk about this again in a little while, that federal law trumps state law, okay? The federal government does not have to enforce a state law if they choose not to, but federal law trumps. So the difference would be that if you have, for example, in Colorado and in Washington, where they have legalized marijuana, right? Where nationally, obviously marijuana is illegal, right? The federal government has chosen to not enforce federal law in those states, right? That's why they can sell stuff, okay? So, what we have, okay? We start out with the preamble to the Constitution, okay? The preamble, okay, what we have with the preamble, all right, is that is sort of the ideal of the Constitution. It is our mission statement, all right? If you've not read it, I'll read it real quick. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do order and ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States, right? It is not specifics. It's sort of a really broad, right? This is what we aspire to be, all right? So you're not going to find anything in there that's going to say a specific law, right? It's the general broad picture that you have, all right? It's sort of the thesis of the Constitution. Yes, exactly right. Okay? So we get to the legislative branch. That's going to be outstanding on the recording right there. The explosion into the room by Ray.
We begin with the
as it happens,
branch.
right? So, all right. We have the legislative branch, okay? Within the legislative branch, okay? Their job is to do what?
I just want to see what that means. Make laws.
Make laws, good. Okay? Their job is to make laws, okay? You have a bicameral legislature, right? We have two houses that work, all right? The lower house is the House of Representatives, okay? In the House of Representatives, okay? How many members are there?
453.
435.
435.
That's what I
It
said.
was close, right? 435, okay? These people, okay, all serve a 2-year term, okay? So all 435 of them are up for re-election every 2 years, all right? In order to serve, you must be at least 25, okay? You must have been a citizen for at least 7 years. Okay. You must live in the state you represent. You do not have to live in the district that you represent, right? So you could live, in theory, in Minneapolis and then run for Congress in Duluth, right? Now, obviously, the residents of Duluth would prefer to have somebody probably that lives in Duluth serving them, right? The head of the House of Representatives is the Speaker of the House. The current Speaker of the House is who? What's that? Boehner was the previous one. He just he resigned last year. Who is it now?
All right.
Paul Ryan. Good. Okay. Paul Ryan is the member. Okay. The House of Representatives is based on population. Okay. Every 10 years, we talked about there's a census, and that census determines how many representatives each state has. Okay, so the last census was 2010. The next one will be 2020. Okay. If a member of the House of Representatives dies or resigns, there is a special election to reappoint. Okay. Key roles, key jobs that they have is in the House. The House is where tax laws are proposed. They must be proposed within the House. Okay? Yeah.
What if someone outside of, like, say, like the Senate one passed one? Would they have to go?
They can't. They can. Other ones can pass. They can't propose though. If they wanted to propose it, they would have to work with a congressman. Okay. With regards to impeachment, okay, we'll talk about impeachment more tomorrow. But impeachment is where you remove somebody from office. The role of the House of Representatives. They have the power to impeach the president. To impeach the president means that you accuse the president of a crime. Does not mean they are kicked out of office. It is the accusation. It is that process. Okay? House of Representatives. Questions? Yeah.
When it's called the lower house, is that another name or a rank that describes it?
It's just it is only a rank in comparison to the Senate.
So it's officially known as the House of Representatives.
It's the House of Representatives, yes. It is the lower of the two houses, though.
Gotcha.
Okay? Yeah.
What's it called when you get kicked out?
So you get, as we'll talk about, to be impeached. So the impeachment is the process of being accused of it, and then you can be convicted of impeachment. And if you are convicted, that's when you would be kicked out. Okay? We'll talk about that more as we move forward. Good? Yes? Yes.
So do they only propose tax laws and have the power to impeach?
No, they can propose any kind of law they want, but specifically if you have a tax law, it must start from the House. It's a specific job given to the House. Okay?
Are there like national tax laws?
Yes.
So like tax laws in like Minnesota, like when they're building the Viking Stadium, or just like
That's a state law, and we'll talk about that, and that will come in the Bill of Rights, that any law not given directly to the federal government through the Constitution goes to the state, so the state has the power to tax, for example. Okay? Good. All right, the Senate. Okay? The Senate has how many members?
100.
100.
Good.
Okay? Why 100? 2 from each state. Okay?
Are there 3 in DC?
There are 3 electors. They are not senators, though. Okay?
Why is it 435?
Where that number comes from?
It's 100.
The population of each state.
Well, yeah, but like it stays 435.
No,
It remains at 435. It is the
Oh,
correct.
It changes the ratio.
When they started, when they made the Constitution, was it still 435 out of all 13 states?
No. It
That'd be a
was
lot. That'd be a lot.
No.
But like,
Excuse me.
The entire colonies
I mean,
is the
they're-
government, like every colonist.
Yeah,
I suppose at that point they're
Yeah,
not
that'd be kinda
colonists,
funny.
but
Early
still.
400 says it's
couple
the US
slaves.
started it.
Yeah, no, I don't know where they end up with 435. I don't know how they ended up at that number. If they added new states, right? If, for example, Puerto Rico became a state, then they would likely add congressmen.
So you think maybe they started at a rounder number than
Yeah,
435
yeah.
and just added?
Is it likely for Puerto Rico?
I have no idea.
Is it like in talks?
It's sort of always in talks,
It's sort of
but
surprising.
it's for a while. But okay, the Senate. All right, 100 members. Okay, 2 per state. They serve a 6-year term. Every 2 years, a third of the Senate is up for re-election.
How many years?
Every 2 years. So over a 6-year period, the entire Senate is up for re-election. In Minnesota this year, we have no senators that are up for re-election, right? Our senators are who?
Al Franken.
Al Franken and Amy Klobuchar, okay? Republicans or Democrats?
Both.
Both Democrats, okay? So neither one of them are up for re-election at this point, so therefore in Minnesota we do not have a Senate race right now, okay? You must be 30 years old, okay? You must have been a citizen for 9 years. Okay? Both the House and the Senate have no term limits, so you can serve for as long as you want, so long as you continue to get reelected. Okay? You must live in the state you represent. Good example of this, Hillary Clinton. When she became the senator in New York, she had to move to New York in order to be the senator from New York.
You
Okay.
can run for any state.
You could, if I wanted to move to Wisconsin and become a senator, I could do so.
Could you run while you live here and then move there when you're
Yes, you could. But what is the likelihood of somebody who would elect, probably unlikely. Okay? Okay, the president of the Senate is the vice president of the United States. Their only responsibility, though, in voting is they only vote in case of a tie. So, if the Senate goes 50-50, right, in 2 weeks, and then Hillary Clinton wins, in theory, the Democrats would control the Senate because Tim Kaine would be the vice president, and then he would cast the deciding vote in the case of a tie. Same with if Trump and the Republicans win, then Pence would be that tiebreaker.
How often are there ties?
Not that unusually. There was a tie within the last, I'm trying to remember under what president it was, but within the last 20 years, I'm pretty sure there was a tie. Okay? Okay, so originally the Senate was chosen by state legislatures. That will change in the 1900s. We'll talk about that on Thursday. Okay? With regards to impeachment, is that right? Tries that way? I'll go with it. So the Senate tries impeachment. What that means is that after the House says we are impeaching this person, then the Senate puts them up for on trial, and they determine if they're found guilty or not. Bill Clinton was impeached, but was found not guilty of his impeachment. Thus, he stayed in office. Okay?
But can't
No.
it be biased because there's different sides?
Uh-huh.
of-
But we'll talk about why you can be impeached moving forward. And we'll,
Why wouldn't it be the judiciary branch that does the trial?
the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court presides over the trial. He runs it.
Well, when you
So
say
all branches control a part of it.
if there's more Democrats in the Senate than if you're like a Democratic president and you're up for it, isn't that
Say it again.
Yeah, it's not fair.
If you're getting
Like-
if you're getting impeached, there's like more Democrats.
yeah. and
Okay,
you're a
so there
Democratic
is, we'll
president,
talk about impeachment tomorrow, but the concept behind impeachment is that you must have committed
the
a crime, right? So when we talk about, people would say like George Bush should have been impeached for what happened with regards to the Iraqi war, right? They brought us into war. He didn't commit a crime, he just did his job, and a lot of Democrats disagreed with that, and that made it inappropriate for him to be impeached. Okay? A president has never been convicted of impeachment. We've only had 2 that have been impeached, Bill Clinton and,
Nixon.
no,
He resigned.
he resigned before.
Carter, right?
Andrew Johnson, good, following the Civil War. They are the only 2 that have been impeached. Neither of them found guilty. Nixon resigned before he was impeached. Okay? He would have been impeached, and he would have been found guilty.
That was a savage.
Okay? He would have been found guilty. All right? So, along with that, okay, what the Senate's job is to do, okay, as they go through, okay, the Senate, as we have found out, the Senate is responsible for approving presidential appointments. Why has this made news recently?
Because Trump said he wouldn't support.
No, not before Trump. Why has this made news within the last year with regards to Obama?
Is this like the Syrian?
Who has he tried to appoint?
Oh,
Another.
Supreme Court, right? Merrick Garland was put up for the Supreme Court, and the Senate said we will not hear his appointment, right? Which is their constitutional duty to do. Okay? So they are choosing not to do that at this point. Now, they have reasons for doing that, but in theory, that is their responsibility to do it. Okay?
So can President Trump that and say no? It's gonna happen? Or
No, so you can't. So that's why we've only had 8 justices for the last 8 months, right? Since Scalia died, because the Senate won't do this either way, right?
so they won't take.
They will not. They will not hear. They will not do his appointment right now. They won't either say yes or no. They're saying that they want the next president to make the decision.
Oh,
Right.
they will get it.
So it will be interesting if Clinton wins and the Republicans keep the Senate. Will they then do an appointment, which they should? This has never happened before, where we've had an appointment not get an up or down vote, which is concerning, right? It's real political.
So like, I guess if the president was Democratic and the Senate is Republican, could the Senate never, or not Senate, could the president never get any of his appointments done?
In theory, but then what happens is you then have elections every 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
And so then you could vote those people out, right? That's the idea behind it. So if you were a senator and you said, we're not going to approve anything, right? Then whoever's running against you in 2 years, or at whatever point it is going to say, these guys haven't done anything. Literally haven't done anything. And that's going to hurt your election. There's long histories of Republican-led Congress, Republican-led Senate approving a Democratic candidate, right? Obama had Kagan and Sotomayor put in, right? It happens where you have this occur. Usually it'll happen, okay? The Senate ratifies treaties with foreign governments. Those are created by the president. That is a check, okay? That works out. Together, as a whole, okay? As the Congress. They both can propose laws. All right? The only ones they can't propose are the tax laws. That comes from the House. Okay? They both can declare war. Okay? Declaration of war has not been done for about 70 years. Everything the United States does now are operations, which the president has the ability to do. It's a way to avoid Congress having this power, but Congress must approve the budget of the military. So that's a way they can check that. They can, let's save that for 1 second. Okay. They can pass laws, okay? When you want to pass a law, the way it works, okay? And this is a good chart on page 9 in your packet, okay? The way it works is that a bill is proposed in either the House or the Senate, okay? If it goes in the House, they vote on it. If they vote to approve it, it goes to the Senate, okay? The Senate then votes on it, okay? If they approve it, okay? And when we approve it, you're looking at a majority in each house. Okay? If it's a majority in each, then it goes to the president. If the president chooses to sign the bill, he signs the bill, it becomes a law. Okay? The president also has the ability to veto the law. Right? If the president vetoes the law, Congress can override a bill with a 2/3 vote. Okay? 2/3 of both the House and the Senate. This just happened with Obama for the first time. Okay? It was with regards to suing other countries, specifically with regards to 9/11. All right? Obama said it was a bad idea. The House and the Senate disagreed. And so it then was overridden. That is a job that they have. This is a check, right? It's a check on lawmaking that the president can veto or sign. It's a check on the president that you can override the bill. But as we've seen with Obama, one time in 8 years, right? So it does not happen very often.
Like they can override the veto.
They can override a veto with a 2/3 vote.
How often does that happen?
It happened once in 8 years.
Like,
Not that often, because if you think about it, right, getting 2/3 of the Senate and the House to agree on anything is not very easy to do, right? If you look on page, if you look on page 10, okay, there are a couple of key pieces. One of them is the enumerated powers. I'm going to try to spell this word correctly. Enumerated. Okay, the enumerated powers describe in detail what the roles of the United States government is, some of the stuff that we just talked about, okay? But there is also the elastic clause. And what the elastic clause does is it allows the government to stretch its rules, okay? It can stretch. So for example, the elastic clause lets the United States government determine what should and should not be on television. You guys remember from the Super Bowl, probably 10 years ago now, when we had the wardrobe malfunction where Justin Timberlake tore off Janet Jackson's top, right, and exposed herself? And the government came in and said, you can't do that, right? And they fined them, the FCC, right? There's nowhere in the Constitution that says anything about having the ability to regulate what's on television, right? But the elastic clause allows them to do this, okay? So that's a key piece, okay? Habeas, yeah, sorry.
So would things go in the elastic clause if they're determined to not be a big enough deal to make an actual amendment to the Constitution?
Correct, and it's something that you would not have been able to have thought up 200 years ago,
Okay.
right? So it allows for the Constitution to be a sort of a growing Constitution. Now, if they do something that is disagreed with, then you start getting lawsuits, and then it ends up leading to laws, or it ends up leading to a constitutional amendment, right? That's where you end up with. Okay? As we said, Congress approves the budget. So if the president wants to spend, okay, he, or possibly she in a couple weeks, must have congressional approval. Okay? So if Obama, let's say, went to war, right? Did an operation, and then he spent all this money, wanted to spend all this money. If the Congress disagreed with him, they'd say, we're not going to pay for it. Obama would then come back and say, you're not supporting our troops, right? and then it becomes a political issue, right? But that is a way to check the spending power of the United States. Okay? Any power not given directly to the federal government goes to the states. So that would be the tax example you talked about, right? Anything not directly to the state or to the federal government goes to the states. The final thing we'll talk about a little bit more, but they can propose an amendment to the Constitution. With a 2/3 vote. Amending the Constitution is designed to be especially hard. They want that to be a really hard thing to do, which is why there have only been a grand total of 27 amendments, and 10 of them happened right away. So there's really only been 17 amendments. Okay? All right. Questions about the legislative branch? I assume your silence means no. Yes? Okay. So with that,